I'm Angel Burgos, Executive Director of Graduate Programs at FIU's College of Business. And today we have a conversation with Professor Edgardo Pappacena. He is a professor in our Executive MBA program, but also teaches in various of our graduate programs. And for those of you who may not know Professor Pappacena, I'd like him to tell us a little bit about himself and how he ended up at FIU.
So thank you very much, Angel. Yes, you are correct. I teach both in the Executive MBA program and in the different executive programs, executive education programs. And as you know, I usually concentrate on strategy, business models, geopolitics. Now, I am a professor now, but I spent all my career in the professional services world. I joined the labor force in professional services in my early 20s until recently when I retired. So I spent about 40 years of my life in professional services, helping clients, building consulting teams, consulting with different companies around the world, which is the reason why I thought that I was fortunate enough to actually be exposed from the early part of my career to what I call the consulting mindset. And I believe that is a set of skills which is absolutely indispensable for business people in today's world. So that's kind of the foundation of what I think you and I will be talking about.
Absolutely. And in fact, this conversation started with many of our alumni. The conversation was at graduation day. I've had a great experience. I've learned a lot. What is next? What is next for me in terms of my learning and my growth? And Professor Pappacena and I have had many conversations about what students are seeking. So, Professor, if you could tell us a little bit about the idea behind offering a certificate program such as thinking like a consultant.
Right. So the name is extremely important because it says thinking like a consultant. And why is that? As you said, many of our, whether it's in the Executive MBA program, whether it's in the MBA program, they graduate and then they'll ask what's next, right? And I always tell them in my class, as you know, that their graduate education at FIU should be a stepping stone in their journey of as lifelong learners. Now, adult people learn skills that are relevant to their professional and business responsibilities. So people would think that by talking about thinking like a consultant, we are targeting this exclusively to people who work as consultants. And that's why it's thinking like a consultant. One of the things that I have learned in my career, again, I was fortunate enough to be educated in this way of thinking from my early 20s, right? So for me, it's second nature. And oftentimes people ask me, how can you come up with ideas and integrate so many different points of view in such a simple manner? And that's part of the education. So thinking in today's world, the average business person is exposed to a highly complex world. Therefore, one of the things that in consulting we learn when you go and see a client is fairly quickly, you need to be able to actually simplify that world to find opportunities and solutions for clients, right? So some people do work as consultants, so may receive this type of training, but most people do not work as consultants. However, in their day-to-day responsibilities, they act as consultants, especially in today's world where most of the work that we do is project work. You are, in a sense, leading a consulting engagement. Therefore, you need to think like a consultant, which is a set of skills, and it's a mindset of how you approach the world, of how you seek for options to find solutions to problems, and then how you interact with your client, whether your client is an external client who's paying you, whether your client is your boss who just asked you to complete a project, or whether your client is an external project for your company. In any case, you are acting as a consultant. So I think it will behoove the audience to actually understand what some of the tricks and tools of the trade really are.
Thank you. And this is certainly a standalone program, certificate program that we're offering at the Chapman Graduate School that will mostly be open to many of our alumni. But I also think that it has a potential for growth in terms of other audiences. So can you tell us a little bit about how others who are not alumni of the program might benefit from this certificate program?
Well, as I said before, any business person can benefit from this, right? Because one of the actually, just to give people an executive summary of what they may encounter in this program, the foundation of consulting, when people think of consultants, they think that we are good with tools and techniques, that we're good at presenting, which is, yeah, you need to be good at those kinds of things. But there's much more than that. It's really about the way you think, the way you view the world, and really starts with a foundation that applies to any business person, I would almost say any person in the world today, which is critical thinking. You cannot be a good consultant unless you think critically. And one of the things that I will reinforce in this program is what I have seen of great consultants. You can tell very quickly when someone is a good consultant, a bad consultant, or a great consultant. Great consultants exhibit what I call whole brain thinking. Okay, we all know about the right brain and the left brain. People have different preferences. A really great consultant brings into his or her trade both sides of the brain, because coming up with a technically correct answer, or coming up with a rigorous approach to look at a problem, you need that. But at some point, you need to engage with your client. Again, whether that client is an external paying client, whether your client is your boss, with a number of stakeholders to whom you will be presenting a set of ideas that hopefully will be implemented. Implementation, change, we know it's not easy. Organizations and people tend to oftentimes resist change. So a critical role of the consultant is how you set up the process to get to the answer, not just providing the answer. It's the analogy of giving someone a fish or teaching someone how to fish, right? So a good consultant teaches the client how to fish, right? Works with the client to find the right answer. And that's where your interpersonal skills become absolutely essential. The great consultants are absolutely exceptional at interacting with clients, influencing the client, because a consultant doesn't have authority, has only influence. So how do you influence someone? You influence someone by engaging that person, by working with that person, by exploring different aspects of the solution, so that your audience feels that they are part of the solution themselves versus something being imposed on them. I mean, the most frustrating thing that you can have as a consultant is you come up with a great idea, and your idea in the old days was a binder, right, that sat on someone's shelf. Today is a file on someone's computer that was a rigorous intellectual exercise that no one implements. So that's why what I want to expose people is to this idea of being a whole brain consultant, a whole brain business person, where you have both the technical and rigorous analysis side and the ability to influence your audience to actually make that change happen.
So you talked, Professor, you mentioned critical thinking, and you mentioned, I think, self-awareness or self-development. Can you tell us what the key takeaways are, or what a student would learn in this certificate program in 3 or 4 bullets?
Actually, the 3 or 4 bullets are structured around the framework. As a good consultant, I use frameworks all the time, so that's going to be one of the things I'm going to teach. What students will work with is 3 things. Ideas based on rigorous concepts and science, such as how the brain works. You cannot be a good consultant if you don't understand how the brain works. So they will have clear ideas. They will also walk away with frameworks frameworks are tools that we use in consulting to simplify the world, but also to make sure that we are considering different aspects of a problem and that we ask the right questions. In consulting, it's more important to ask right questions than come up with right answers. Okay, because without the questions, you will not have the answer. So the ideas will translate into frameworks. Frameworks integrate ideas and help us evaluate that. And then finally, those frameworks will translate into tools, specific tools that the audience will be able to use to actually test if those ideas, if those frameworks work. In a sense, Angel, it's an application to the consulting world of the scientific method that, we in academia should be teaching, right? It's a learning loop. You come up with ideas. You use tools to actually implement that act, and then you test if your ideas are right or wrong. If they're wrong, you change your ideas. If they're right, you keep exploring for more options. So it's a combination of ideas, frameworks, and tools. Practical things. I mean, this is for practical people. As you know, I am a practitioner, not an academic. Okay, and everyone who's had me in class knows that. And what I want them to do is I want them to have the same access to the same mindsets, the same skills, the same tools. Again, that those of us who lived our lives there have ingrained as a way of thinking, as a way of approaching problems.
So switching gears, if we could talk a little bit about what the course or the certificate program will look like.
So the idea is, again, most of the people who will be attending this program are business people. So we're trying to make this easy for them. Because of the nature of the topic, we believe that classroom interaction is extremely important. Classroom interaction among themselves, which is how executives learn, and classroom interaction with the professor. Because I think it's about how can you communicate your life experiences. The best way of doing that is by looking at someone in the eyes and tell them, this is what I lived. These are the scars I earned in my professional career. So we believe that face-to-face interaction, classroom interaction is extremely essential. It's about a 20-hour program. We're thinking of structuring this in 2 8-hour days, and then a final day of 4 hours where they will apply many of the tools and many of the concepts that they have learned. So 20 hours structured into 2.5 days. We think that way executives, business people will have enough time to plan and make a day for expanding their intellectual horizons.
Okay, one of the key points that I mentioned to our students while in the program, they come in with such fire in their belly. They have such motivations to be here. And they say, what makes a successful business school alum? And I often say to them what you said, Professor, which is it's about lifelong learning. And the most successful person will be the person who never stops learning,
right?
Who gains new skills. What is our call to action to not only to our alumni, but to our business community here in Miami?
Look, lifelong learning is a journey, which by definition, you never get there. Okay? You never get there because you're always learning, especially in today's world. So that's one of the first things I reinforce in my classes. Secondly, lifelong learning implies a certain level of intellectual curiosity, right? You have to be curious about the world. You really want to learn more. So I would say that successful business people are, by definition, lifelong learners. I always give the example of one of my intellectual and business heroes, which is Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger was the co-founder of Berkshire Hathaway. He passed away in November of last year at the age of 99. Okay, and the guy every single week would read a new book. Okay, and he was an embodiment of wisdom. And as you know, wisdom is something that you don't learn in a book. Wisdom is something where you have learned different things, you have been exposed to different experiences, and then you connect that to your life experience. So I think that it's, of course, a certificate or a or a graduate degree is extremely important, right? But we both know that at the speed at which knowledge evolves in today's society, what they may have learned 3 or 4 years ago is already obsolete. That's why in this course, I believe that we need to teach more fundamental skills, the way that people think, not what they think, but how to think. So this is part of that a process, of that journey of helping people really broaden their horizons, explore different opportunities that I think will be very beneficial for them in their business and professional careers, but also in their personal careers, because lifelong learning applies to every aspect of our lives.
Thank you, Professor.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you very
your
much.
time.
Thank you.